Turns out that I am not alone in believing that part of the recent strength in Tesla has been Tesla fans who decided they wanted to go over and buy some NVIDIA a few weeks ago, get into that NVIDIA trade, made their money on NVIDIA, and they're now trimming their position on NVIDIA, taking some of their profits and returning to Tesla. I've seen others saying that this trade might continue as NVIDIA has gone really, really far, really, really fast, and Tesla is undervalued. Of course, NVIDIA has earnings coming out this week, which could really shake up the markets depending on what they say about their guidance and what their earnings really truly turned out to be. Then I wish Elon would have posted this particular item a few hours ago so I could have added it to my video this morning on AI and robotics. That was a super interesting video, super interesting what is happening in that entire space. And I will add a card later on to let you have another shot if you didn't already see that video. You really need to see it. But anyway, this is what Elon Musk had to say. He says Tesla has been able to do real world video generation with accurate physics for about a year. And that whole show that I did this morning was all about the aspects of how the physics, the real world physics, where you're taking what's happening in 3D. I mean, you got 3D things happening. You have to reduce that to 2D, but still keep the physics right. This is very, very important to the gaming illustrations or the animations. It's really, really critical to things like full self-driving. Anyway, Elon goes on to say that even though we can do that, it wasn't all that super interesting because all the training data came from the cars. So it just looks like video from a Tesla, albeit with a dynamically generated, not remembered world. So it's dynamically generated world. It's not something that the computer is remembering. It's dynamically generated. He says, we have been short on training compute for FSD, so we haven't trained with other video, but we certainly could. We'll do this later in the year when we start to have some spare capacity. So, all right, you want to think about all that real quick. Number one, they've had the capacity for a year. That means they're really, really far ahead on this entire category. They are certainly right in there with the rest of the big guys in terms of what they're doing in the AI space. Number two is they've been short of training capacity for FSD. Wow, considering the amount of compute they've been buying and the amount of compute they've been building on Dojo, it's amazing to hear that they continue to be short on their their ability to do video training. However, the final thing, maybe the most important, is they'll do it later this year when they have some spare capacity. So Dojo must be building up at rates expected. They've also got NVIDIA CPUs that they've been buying. And so potentially between all of that, they're expecting to finally get ahead of the game. And then who knows what that'll mean for FSD, what that'll mean for future things with the robots, et cetera. So I thought that was a very, very important piece of news that I wish I'd had earlier. Anyway, lots of India noise again, with various sources now reporting that India may be ready for some concessions on import duties. That is being worked out. It's being, nailed down. But I'm going to say that the reporting that I'm seeing right now is still soft enough that I'm not ready to put the champagne on ice. We'll see over the next few days if that starts to firm up. But right now, worth talking about, but not time to get excited quite yet. All right, then Sawyer Merritt reports this. He says, to give President Biden, this is from the New York Times, by the way, so it's not original reporting by Sawyer. This is taken from the New York Times. To give President Biden a better chance of winning the 2024 election, okay, the administration is considering relaxing its limits on tailpipe emissions that are designed to get Americans to switch from gas-powered cars to EVs. It was a concession to automakers and labor unions. All right, let me get this straight. You've got the vast majority, I think, of the Democrats believing that we are all going to die from CO2, too much CO2 in the air, that the world is going to end. Not the vast majority probably believe that, but some believe that. Most believe that the global warming problem is something that's so significant that we should be doing a lot to stop it, a lot to make sure that it doesn't happen. The number one thing that is happening right now in the world, besides maybe the amount of natural gas we're using compared to the other fossil fuels, but say at least tied for, or maybe almost as important as that, is the EV revolution. And the energy storage revolution, which, of course, Elon Musk is 100% responsible for what's happening in both of those categories. So then the president, looking at what's good for all of us, what's the most important thing he can do as the president of all of us? His folks are telling him, or maybe he's not involved at all, but let's just say that he is, that he wants to win this election, and he thinks that the way to win the election is by slowing down the rate at which we take care of the CO2 problem. He thinks we should go ahead and change that. That would be good. Now, this is on top of the fact that just 2 weeks ago, this same administration slowed down the permitting process, or got involved somehow to get in the way of the permitting process for increasing the amount of liquefied natural gas that we could ship out of this country, which I can't figure out, because the use of natural gas is the number one way that the United States and the world actually has been reducing the amount of CO2 by far. It's not even close, and nobody disagrees with that. I'm so confused. Okay, let's go on. So, from time to time, I like to look at Gary Black's catalyst list, and then I like to put out my own. And so let's just do that real quick. Gary Black's catalyst, number one, stable auto gross margins. I think he's 100% right. If we can continue to see either no major decreases and or maybe some increases, I think that will definitely be a stimulus to the stock. Number two, $7,500 EV instant rebate. Well, so far that hasn't kicked in. We're in the middle of February. I haven't seen any significant evidence that $7,500 EV instant rebate is really shaking up sales, but we'll see. But so far, I can't see the evidence. I guess I thought, and a lot of people thought, that would really have an impact, and it should. I continue to believe, as Gary does, that it's time to advertise, because that's the only way. And I'm going to do a big story on that tomorrow morning, not on advertising, but on what's happening with what needs to happen to stimulate sales this year. All right, number three, Cybertruck halo effect. I've already mentioned this a couple of times on previous videos. We have not seen the Cybertruck halo effect yet. I know. Why? Okay, the reason why, mainstream media has not covered it. So until the mainstream media starts to cover the Cybertruck, all of the stars that are prancing around with it, all of the situations with all incredible YouTube videos that have been done on it, all of the sightings and all the rest of it, all of the people that have been talking about how great the vehicle is, none of it's going to matter, because the average citizen right now is really not hearing about the Cybertruck. But we'll talk about that in my list of catalysts, okay? Number four, the Model 3 Highland US launch. Also, so far, absolutely no evidence that this is impacting anything anywhere. No mainstream media coverage. Again, the mainstream media doesn't want to do anything positive about Tesla, even though this Model 3 Plus might be the best car for the money, period, on the market today, assuming that you're okay with a sedan as opposed to an SUV or something larger. So, yeah, that catalyst, absolutely no evidence right now that it's happening. I'm a little surprised myself. The car is so good, I thought it would be impacting things. Moreover, I'm a little sad I'm not seeing any impact in Europe or in China either. And I thought maybe we would see, it's been out long enough that I was expecting to see an impact. Not clear to me why this isn't happening. Put in the comments below if you have some kind of an idea of why we're not seeing more impact there. Number five, new Elon Musk comp plan. Yeah, I think that's necessary. Dan Ives said the other day that he thinks it might be worth 40 or 50 points. And that seems a little crazy to me. I don't think that we're 40 to 50 points down because of the confusion about the comp plan. I don't know. I'm just not clear. But, it would be good to solve all of the whole category. In other words, take care of whatever's happening with the Delaware courts, with the appeal, whatever, and then also get a new comp plan, solve the problem of the old comp plan, get Elon his 25% voting rights. All of those things need to be solved. Whether that's worth 10 points, 30 points, 50 points, I don't know, but it certainly wouldn't hurt, and it could help the stock. Number 6, the Fed's pivot on interest rates. Yeah, so when the Fed pivots, I think that will be a serious help to the stock. Yes. Number 7, FSD OEM licensing deal. I don't think it matters what it is. It could be a licensing deal for 48 volt. It could be a licensing deal for the entire entertainment system, the entire car, if you will, in terms of the way that it's wired, both for electric and for electronics. It could be FSD. Lots of possible ways that this could go. We heard about Ford the other day saying that they might have to get together with an EV company in order to get it right. Who else would it be other than Tesla? Number 8, Tesla's $10 billion share buyback in full year 24. He says, not going to happen. Would be a stupid idea. Don't like it. It isn't going to happen, Gary. Hate to tell you. Number 9, 25,000 to 30,000 next gen car in full year 2025. So yeah, that's going to be a huge catalyst. And the question is, what will be the catalyzing moment? I'll talk about that in my list. And then number 10, Optimus deliveries beginning in full year 2025. That will definitely be a catalyst, really maybe a huge, massive catalyst. But anyway, there it is. And he says his price target for the next 6 to 12 months is 290. All right, I call mine a market mover list, and the difference is I see these things as building on the fundamentals in ways that might take the market a little bit longer to get sometimes. So number 1, increasing talk by major companies and thought leaders about humanoids combining with more videos of Tesla's progress. So with regard to the humanoid robots, I think that we can see the market move a lot this year as the market recognizes the incredible potential overall of humanoids because everybody's talking about it. So the more that gets into the system, more it gets into the blood flow of the investment community, then they're going to say, well, okay, if this is going to be if it's going to be the biggest thing that's ever hit the markets ever, which it is, then okay, how am I going to make money out of it? Does that make sense? Let me know in the comments below. I think that's what's going to happen sometime this year. There's going to be a moment, almost like a ChatGPT moment, where it's going to be, oh my gosh, this is big. How am I personally? How am I going to make money for my company? How am I going to make money for my fund, et cetera? And then they're going to start looking at Tesla and go, they seem to be in the lead. Number 2, aren't even in second place or third place. Number 2, a dramatic increase in profits from energy storage. I've been talking about this for a while. I said I thought it would happen with the first quarter earnings report in April. I guess in April. May take until July. Those are the 2 possibilities. But in one of those times, we're going to see a really serious increase in the amount of energy storage profits. And the market is finally going to go, oh my goodness, they are way more than a car company. And that is going to impact. Okay, number 3, clarity that the 4680 is at 25 gigs and then again at 50 gigs. So we need some updates on this. You know, Troy Tesla thinks it might be as low as 3 gigs right now of annual production. I think that's what he meant in his email to me. Maybe I was wrong, but he's talking about 3 gigs, gigawatt hours. So we need clarity. When we get to 25 total gigawatt hours of annualized production, in other words, about 2 gigawatt hours per month, we need to hear about it. Then when we get to 4, we need to hear about it again. And then when we get, of course, to 100 total per year, we need to hear about it. So these could be milestones that, when reported, could start to get the market to go, okay, there is a correlation between the production of these batteries and all of the products that the batteries go into. All right, number 4, Cybertruck finally hits MSM. When it's on the late night show, when it's talked about on a late night show, when it's talked about on SNL, when it's talked about in the New York Times, when it's talked, it needs to get in the mainstream media, and so far it hasn't. It's another one of these things where it might take another 10,000 cars on the road. It might take some particular star talking about it. We had another big statement over the yesterday, I think it was, from Joe Rogan saying that it's just an amazing car. He can't believe he says some curse words and says, "What have you done, Elon?" The Joe Rogan thing, yeah, he's got a lot of followers, but it really takes the mainstream media, the NBCs, et cetera, talking about it, and they just haven't done it. I think they purposely didn't do it. All right, number 5, Gigamex update after the groundbreaking. So we need the groundbreaking, but we need the groundbreaking to include, here's when we think the building will be up and running. Here's when we think the first product will come out of it. Give us the full details. Then it might only be worth 5 or 6 or 10 points, but it will be worth something. Number 6, evidence that overall U.S. sales are better than 2.1 million. What could that evidence be? Well, it could be some of the reporting folks, like Troy Teslike or others who keep track of these kind of things, who would up their expectation. And even though they might not be maybe Wall Street isn't watching those guys, all of a sudden that momentum of the idea begins to take shape. So if we think that it's going to be 2.15 or 2.2, if all of a sudden everybody starts to buy into that, that could make a huge, massive difference. Number 7, a decision to offer Dojo as a service with details. I'm hoping for an AI day. I've said I think it will be on April 20th. We're getting awfully close to that date for me to be right, because I got to announce it like 45 days ahead of time. So probably have until March 1st or 10th or something before it's impossible. Anyway, I'm still hoping for April 20th, but I'm hoping we have an AI Day 3 sometime this year. That'd be a great time to say, okay, we've got enough Dojo. We know Dojo can do this. We see all the opportunities for it to be used as a service, and we're going to go ahead and do that. I think there would be a significant bump in the stock price from that. I think it could be serious numbers. Number 9, a new Tesla Semi reveal with projected sales target. That should come later this year. They're supposed to be spinning out some semis before the end of the year. Everything points to that. Maybe it'll be the very beginning of next year, but sometime this year, we should have some kind of a reveal. It may not be, a big, everybody comes to Texas deal or everybody goes to Reno, but it should be some kind of reveal. And what we want, of course, is the sales targets, the annual projections. We want to know what the prices are. We want to know who the customers are, blah, 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 et cetera. Okay. And that could be, again, worth 10 or 20 points. Number 10, a run rate of 1,000 Cybertrucks per week. This will be big. Even if nobody reports if we never get that mainstream reporting, at some point, Tesla is going to get all the gang together. They're going to get that group picture, and they're going to say, we have hit the run rate of 1,000 CTs per week. Might even happen at 500, but at the 1,000 number, it will be a big deal. So look for that. All right, this comes from the American Banker. Now that we're turning to general news, not to Tesla news, from the American Banker. This is important stuff. I know maybe you don't care about the economy. I think you do. This is important to every single person out there. So listen up. U.S. bankers upped their standards again late last year as they braced for credit quality to deteriorate in 2024. This played out across all commercial and all consumer loan segments. So they're making it harder to borrow because they are expecting the quality of their existing portfolio to go down in 2024. Bankers also noted their hopes that demand would improve across all categories as the year plays out, creating some rays of hope in the results that are consistent with a second half of 2024 rebound story. Because why? Because the Fed will lower interest rates. So to be sure, bankers said stubbornly high interest rates. Please try again. Siri just answered me. To be sure, bankers said stubbornly high interest rates following multiple Fed hikes over the past 2 years to curb inflation have made it difficult for more borrowers to qualify for loans. So Tesla specifically, when they're trying to do car loans, some people that might feel like they can make the payment, feel like they want to make the purchase, are having trouble even getting the loan. The Fed report emphasized decreased customer investment in plant or equipment and decreased financing needs for inventories, accounts receivable, and mergers or acquisitions. We've seen this from the National Federation of Independent Businesses also, that independent businesses are saying, we don't need any loans. We're good. We prepared for the recession. Recession never came, and we don't need to borrow any money. Our borrowing capabilities are just fine. We're not struggling. Now, that's not true for all categories. So you see things like new car dealerships, used car dealerships, they are not is sanguine about the current situation, but manufacturers, wholesalers, et cetera, seem to be okay with regard to their financing needs. But rising credit card debt and delinquencies represent key elements that point to the consumer running out of cash from the stimulus payments. An S&P Global analysis of the average annualized net charge-off rate for the 6 largest U.S. credit card issuers in December rose 88 basis points from a year earlier to 2.08. In other words, from 1.2, 1.30, no, 1.20 to 2.08, its highest level since reaching 2.21 in August of 2020. So the pandemic money's come in, took care, a lot of people paid off their credit cards. Now the pandemic money is over. And so people are increasing their credit card debt again, and they've even got to the point where they're having a hard time paying it. Such signs of deterioration also are pushing bankers to grow increasingly choosy with consumer loans. This could weigh on gross domestic product growth. By extension, given that the U.S. economy is driven by consumer spending, and in particular, this is Randy, in particular, over the last 2 years has been very heavily driven by consumer spending, as businesses have not been as eager to spend because they kept expecting a recession. Oil demand, this is okay. That's the end of the banker story. This is a different story. We've been talking about oil demand. What in the world is going on with regard to the oil prices staying in that 70 to 77 range for now months? The range on oil prices have been really, really narrow. So here's an article. Actually, it's not an article. I've condensed the article into my own words. Oil demand growth is down and supply is up. Recessions in the United Kingdom, Japan, and China, with weakness elsewhere, is reducing growth in oil demand. Meanwhile, increasing production is coming from the United States, Brazil, Guyana, and Canada. Just as some of the countries where there's increases, this alone should way more than eclipse the expected rise in world oil demand. So oil demand is continuing to increase, but it's increasing at a much lower rate. And so these countries that are now producing way more than they were a year ago, that is creating a glut, is basically what it's doing. And that glut shows no evidence of going away anytime soon. It doesn't, and this is on top of the fact that the Iran, no, Saudi Arabia and the entire OPEC group have actually cut back on their production in order to try to keep the prices in line. So if they put back their production, of course, the prices will go down even more. All right, so if you haven't checked out that video, if you were not able to see for any reason, you were out playing, you were out running around doing errands, but for some reason you did not see the video I did earlier today about AI and about the coming together of what's happening with AI, what's happening with AGI, what's happening with robotics, how that all works together, how that works together even with FSD and the FSD on the vehicles. It all comes together. Super interesting. I took a look at 3 videos that came out over the last few days that were just incredibly impactful and useful. And so I'm just telling you, you really need, if you haven't seen it, go back and check it out. The card will be right there. And then tomorrow morning, I'll be taking a look at the sentiment change that I'm starting to see in Tesla. There's a lot of things going on, but I believe in the narrative and the sentiment as being very, very important to the stock price. I want to talk to you about what's happening on that. Okay, hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit notify. Come join me on Patreon. Come on up there, $3, $5, $10. Pick a number and join up on Patreon. Help support the channel, and then get some Cybertruck bottle openers. That'll be all I got for you today, and we'll talk to you in the morning. It's been great talking to you.